Alright guys, so in this section we're going to start to look at, I guess, more advanced parts of CSS or things that you're not going to use as much. They're not as common, but you should still know. And in this video we're going to look at targeted selectors or just different ways of selecting elements than we've already learned. So I'm going to create a new file, and what I've done is I've created a folder called CSS Sandbox 2 just because the CSS Sandbox that we've been working with is really filling up, so I just figured I'd start a new one for this section. So let's create a file called one_, and we'll call this targeted, let's say targeted _ selectors.html. And we're going to just put in our boilerplate here, and let's change the title, targeted selectors, and we'll go ahead and put our style tags in. Now the HTML for this is going to be really weird, but I'm doing it for a reason because I want to show you how to select certain parts of it. So we're going to create a div, and in this div we'll have a paragraph with we'll just do lorem, something really short, just lorem 5, and then under that I'm going to put a UL, and let's do list item. For the content we'll say item and an incremented number, so $, and let's do 3, so we'll do ×3 and enter. Alright, and then under the UL we're going to put another paragraph with lorem 5. I also want to make this item 2, I want to wrap that in a paragraph tag as well. And you'll see why I'm doing this in a few minutes. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to put one more paragraph under the div. Okay, so outside of the div. Okay, so up in the style here, if we do div p like this, you guys, you know what this is going to do. It's going to look for any paragraph that's inside of a div, right? So I'm just going to put a background of, let's do gray. Let's save it. Let's open this up with live server. And I'm actually going to just make this a little bigger so you guys can see it better. So what's going on here is every paragraph within a div has the gray background. If we look at the markup here, this paragraph is in the div, this paragraph is in the div, this one is in the div, this last one is not, so that doesn't pertain to this selector. Now, what if we wanted to select a paragraph that was directly in a div? It was a direct child of the div. So to do that, let me just put a comment here. We'll say direct child. To do that, what we could do is just add a greater than sign, an angle bracket here, and this is saying that we only want a paragraph that is a direct child of a div. So let's save that, and you can see that the middle one here, this disappeared because it no longer pertains to that, because this item, or I'm sorry, this paragraph, its direct parent is a list item. Okay, whoops, didn't mean to do that. It's a list item, even though it is in this div, it's not the direct parent. Okay, the direct parent is a list item, then that parent is the UL, and then that parent is the div. So at the same time, we can also select something that is directly after an element, so something that's on the same level. So let's say directly after, and I'm going to say div, and I'm going to use a plus sign here, and then a P. And let's change the background to, we'll just do dark, whoops, we'll do dark gray, and then we'll do color white. So let's save that and see what happens. So the last paragraph is affected by this selector right here, and the reason for that is we're saying we want a paragraph where the element right before it is a div. Okay, now you might be saying, what about this one? There's a div here. This is a child of the div. Okay, so this paragraph is inside the div, which makes it a child. This one is a sibling of this div. They're on the same level. This is not inside of it. So that's what this pertains to, is basically a sibling. Okay, so the next sibling. All right. Now the next thing I want to show you is how we can add attributes as selectors. So I'm actually going to add some more markup down here under the paragraph. I'm going to put a couple links. So this is, we'll just go nowhere. I'm just going to say page 1. We'll just pretend it's a link to, you know, another page on the site. So page 2, And then let's do another link. But for this one, let's have it go to Google. And for the text, we'll say Google. All right, now usually when you have an external link, you're going to have a target attribute and set it to _blank, and that will take it off the, it won't redirect you within the same tab. It'll open up another tab. And if we wanted to style this based on it having a target attribute, we could do that. So let's go up here and let's say by attribute. So I could say I want all the A tags that have an attribute of target. And then I want to add a background of, let's do red. And we'll make the color white. Okay, so if I save that, notice that the Google link now has a red background, and that's because it has a target on it. Now if I were to add a target to this one here, let's say target, this time let's set it to _self. We'll save, and it gets a red background because it does have the target. Now, in addition to this, you can also you can reference the actual value. So if we want to say where the target is equal to _blank and save, you'll see that now Google is the only one that has the red background because we're saying the target has to be blank, where this one is actually self. Okay, and I'm going to give you a more practical example of this, so I'm just going to put that back like that. And then let's go down here and let's say specific attribute values. And where I use this the most is with forms, or form inputs, I should say. So I'm going to just add some line breaks here, and let's add a form. And we're just going to have a couple inputs. So let's say input with the type of text, and we don't need a name or ID. I will put a placeholder, and we'll just say name, and then I'll copy this down 2 more times. This one will be an email. I'm also going to change the type to email, which is similar to a text field. This one is actually going to be a submit. I want this to be a button to submit, so it's not going to have a placeholder. However, it needs a value because that's the text that is displayed. All right, so we'll save that, and we get this right here. So let's say I want the name and the email input to be 100% width and add a little bit of margin. So if I were to just do input and say width 100% and then say margin bottom, we'll do like, I don't know, 5 pixels. And if we were to save that, you'll see that all of these, this is going to pertain to all of them because they're all inputs. They have different types, but they're all inputs. So we may want to target certain types. And in this case, I want the name field and the email to have the 100%, but not the button itself. So what I would do, and this is something that is pretty common for me, is I would say input where the type equals text. If I do that, only the name extends because it has a type of text, but then we could put a comma. We could say input where the type equals email and save, and now both the name and the email are 100%. In a lot of cases, if it's like a contact form, you'd also do the text area as well. But yeah, so that's how we can target specific values of attributes. Okay, and it doesn't have to be input with a type. It can be any attribute at all. Why did that change? What did I do wrong here? Oh, there we go. All right. So, I mean, these are just some other methods to target certain things in the DOM to style. You're not going to be using these as much, obviously, but you may run into a situation where they could help you out. All right, so in the next video, we're going to talk about a special pseudo selector or pseudo class called nth child.